hero, creep. You'd think something like this would be pretty cut and dry, right? But no, that would be too easy. What fun is a society where people are treated equally and guys treat women with respect and don't try to justify a creep unwantedly touching a woman because of what she was wearing. But since this is the reality, I thought I'd spend a minute addressing a few of the overwhelming number of disgusting comments posted around the internet attempting to explain away sexual assault. And as you'd expect, most of these comments come from those clearly fragile souls still shaken from their first ever interaction with a female. 21-year-old Amelia Holden was working in a restaurant in Georgia when 31-year-old Ryan Cherwinski, that's Ryan Cherwinski, sexually assaulted her, claiming that he just tried to push her out the way. She was having none of it, and so she dropped him, all while keeping hold of the check. He was subsequently arrested and charged with sexual battery, but as I mentioned, not everyone sees this situation as a straightforward case, which is why this toxic problem still plagues society. So let's make this clear. This is never okay. Never. I don't care what a person is wearing. It is not an invite for you to think you have touching privileges, nor is it the woman's fault that said man doesn't have the self-control to walk past her without committing assault. Yet this isn't clear to people like Felix. Yeah, Felix thinks, no, this isn't okay, but at the same time, she shouldn't be wearing that. Or good old John here, who commented, if it ain't for sale, don't put it in the window. Ah, twee. Or Gary, or Nick, or the countless other comments from people whose toxic masculinity means they instinctively victim shame. Alright, listen up fellas, just because you think a woman's outfit gives you the freedom to try and reenact your shallow Saturday night Pornhub marathon, it doesn't. These men are the epitome of cowardice. They have been brainwashed into thinking that this attitude is what it means to be a man. Yeah, I'm a man. Guns and shit. Assault and shit. When the reality is they are so warped by this fear of emasculation that they're driven to prove their masculinity by sexually assaulting or justifying other sexual assaults to feel better about themselves. And I'm not even going to attempt to empathize with the whole, what if this was your wife or your daughter? Would you still victim shame? Bullshit. Because whether you have 12 daughters or you live in a remote hut in Nova Scotia, you should realize that this should never happen to anyone. It shouldn't take a guy realizing that an assault could just as easily happen to his own daughter to understand that it's fundamentally wrong and toxic. It just takes decency. Human decency and integrity. Guys have had daughters and mothers their whole lives, but these assaults still happen, and people still make excuses for it. And the only way that changes is if the problem is addressed by the most frequent perpetrators. Women have been telling us to stop the unwanted touching for decades, and it still remains a pervasive, intractable stain on our society. It's on other men to stand up and fight back against this warped perception of what masculinity is, and that has allowed for this treatment to anchor itself into society and rid the world of it. You know, the same way that racism will not be solved by only black people saying, hey, how about you treat us equally? Because they've been saying that for decades, and yet widespread systemic racism remains. This issue will not be addressed solely by women speaking up and fighting back. The Me Too movement has been monumental in furthering conversations and shedding light on how often this problem occurs in all walks of life. But men must join this conversation and fight back against fellow men like those mentioned above who shame victims and try to justify sexual assault with BS defenses like she was asking for it or boys will be boys. And work to tear down this fraud sense of masculinity.
It's more a question of what does it mean to be human?